Hello there, I'm Charlotte Smead.
And I'm Emma Smith, and welcome to another episode of Autism Sparks, brought to you on behalf of the Autism Dogs charity.
Yes, it is lovely to be here with you. I have spent the afternoon knee deep in geography work with Molly, going through population pyramids. So it is wonderful to have a break. And I am absolutely certain that Molly is also very pleased to have a break from me too. Today, we are going to be discussing masking. And we have the lovely Caroline and Josie with us, joining us to share their experiences and thoughts.
Yes, welcome along, Jo and Caroline. The National Autistic Society say that research suggests autistic people learn how to mask by observing, analysing and mirroring the behaviours of others in real life, on TV, in films and books, etc. Masking could involve mirroring others' facial expressions, tone of voice, reducing or suppressing, hiding, stimming, and visible interactions to sensory activities. Planning in advance what you want to say to someone, not sharing the interests that you're concerned that they may be considered inappropriate or unusual. Mirroring dress sense, asking more questions that you may feel comfortable with. This can be done for a variety of reasons, such as to blend in, avoid stigma or to be accepted by others, to compensate for communication or social difficulties, and to cope at school. Even because it has become a routine, it's more subconscious. We will try and talk about all this during the episode. There's a huge impact to individuals who mask, including mental and physical exhaustion. It can also be the implications of misdiagnosis and people believing a person is autistic. Charlotte, what's your experience been with Elodie and Molly in the terms of masking?
Well, so I feel I'm going to step fairly carefully here because I have no personal experience of masking, only what I witnessed from the girls. So I feel in some ways woefully underqualified to comment. But I think it is interesting because we can all identify with a certain amount of needing to change our personalities depending on the situation. So for example, my sister Zoe, she has the best telephone voice when she is speaking to someone on the phone. And all day I've been trying to think about how I could mimic that to show you what that's like, but I can't. But she just sounds like someone very professional. Not that she doesn't sound professional, sorry, Zoe. But I find it hilarious. She's got a wonderful telephone voice. Sometimes when I'm really nervous about a meeting, I'll script it in my head. I'll think through what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And I've talked on the podcast before about really struggling with eye contact and my eyes bouncing around the room and then thinking, oh, good grief, I've not looked somebody in the eye for ages. And then I stare at them and then I think, oh gosh, now I've just freaked them out. So I think there's an element where everyone changes their personality or who they are, how they dress, depending on a situation. However, we need to make sure that we don't confuse these behaviours with masking. The National Autistic Society has a quote from Rosie Weldon, and it says that a lot of us present different versions of ourselves in different situations. That's normal. But masking is to rewrite every fibre of your being to suit the situation you are in and what is perceived to be normal behaviour and reactions. Normal behaviour and reactions. And I think that this is a really good way to think about it. So I've seen the kids cover their sensory difficulties while out and about because they don't want to show how distressed they're being about a noise. I think that both my girls have this mentality where they will steel themselves for a situation, for a task ahead. They'll put their head down and get through it and show absolutely no signs of distress until they're back home. Anyone watching them will comment on how well they're doing. And this is where I'll get the comment, well, they're absolutely fine when they're here. The cost of this can be huge. The mental ability it takes to do and be so very different than what is comfortable and tolerable cannot be underestimated. And so it's so important that we look behind the mask. But it also really upsets me that our society is built in such a way that means that autistic individuals feel a need to mask in order to manage. If an autistic child does something that is out with their norm, we can have a tendency to congratulate them. Well done, you. Look what you did. That's amazing. Look at you doing something you don't normally do. And though I don't think that's wrong necessarily, I do wonder if that feeds into this idea that an autistic individual feels a need to mask, that it's what society expects. So for several years, I've worked with the kids with a main goal of getting them to feel comfortable in their own skin, that they don't need to hide that in any way when they are out and about. Though I know that they still mask when out with others, I hope that I'm instilling a confidence that the person that they are without the mask is absolutely amazing. Emma, what is your experience with the boys?
Well, Charlotte, my boys are master maskers. They've all survived school. This is how they did it. In fact, I've mentioned before the shocked reaction that we've had from teachers when, in fact, those masks have slipped at times. They've really had a where's this come from moment. What I've learned and what my husband's learned is that we are the safe harbour for our children. And be it us physically, be it our space, our home. And my son's mask can slip here in that comfort. But because of the emotional dysregulation from that, we don't get the overing need for comfort. We get the crying and the upset and the anger, the screaming and the violence. As they're older, I see the situations as such a struggle for them. Overly peopled, forced smiles. I can see it from a mile away that they're going to need some time to kind of come down afterwards when we've been somewhere. It makes me sad sometimes, though, that they fight so hard to be perceived as normal. Yet the older I'm getting, the more I side with them. I get fed up of people. I need a break and some headspace. And I think so many autistic individuals and neurotypical individuals can understand that need of being overwhelmed and just sometimes needing space, maybe a bit of a duvet day. I think it's very unique to be in this position that we've had this chat, Charlotte, now as two individuals who possibly don't mask too much, but we're joined today by two lovely young ladies who probably do and have masked throughout their lives.
Absolutely. As I said earlier, we have Josie and Caroline joining us tonight. Josie is a 16-year-old from London who is a handler to autism assistance dog Duke. She enjoys watching movies, listening to music, and photography. Duke attends college with Josie every day. Caroline is 55 years old and lives in Cheshire. After suffering years of mental health issues, she was diagnosed only a few years ago, and since then the world has made more sense to her. Now, what Caroline does not say is that Caroline and her husband Andrew are also the backbone of the Autism Dogs charity. I am sure you will have heard Emma and I and several of our guests discussing our assistance dogs at one time or another. Molly has the lovely Milo, who we will definitely be talking about in an episode. It was Caroline and Andrew's drive, determination and experience that created the Autism Dogs charity, that made sure their programme was Assistance Dogs International approved. They and their team support many families around the UK, and thanks to all their hard work, they have changed the lives of many autistic individuals. If you want to hear more about the charity they've created, then head over to the Autism Dogs charity website. There's lots of information and pictures about what the charity does and who they help.
Welcome, Jo and Caroline. I think we need to begin by getting a good definition of masking. So, Caroline, how would you define masking?
I think because I'm much older, it is the younger generation and the newer understanding of autism that has kind of educated me in what it is. So I can only give to you what I've seen and what I've read. I think it is moments where you want to project something differently to how you're feeling or who you are or what you're thinking. And there are various motives for doing that. So, and I think there are more motives more regularly with autism and anxiety, particularly to be able to present and navigate a day, a relationship, a social situation. You know, young people especially say everything is very visual, isn't it? Instagram and what you look like physically rather than what you have to say. You know, are you are you aware of certain trends, and do you subscribe to that, and what's your opinion? And the world seems to judge it. So it's become far more heavy-handed. I think it's about making yourself, where possible, feel comfortable, and it's fueled by, the world around you, and the necessity comes from the confusion caused by being autistic and translating what's really going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Josie, what about you? How would you define masking?
For me, I think masking is trying to present myself as neurotypical or to minimize my symptoms of autism to make the people around me feel more comfortable. And I think sometimes it's just constant worrying that what you're saying or the way you're acting or how you're presenting yourself will be socially acceptable. And it can be like one big acting scene and you're the star. And it's exhausting and it can be really mentally and physically draining. And I think people don't realize how much effort you're putting into something. Like, I'm not just looking at you, I'm using all my brain power to make sure I'm looking and I'm nodding and I'm smiling. Oh, but I'm not looking too much. And then I don't even remember what we've been talking about. I think sometimes for me, it can mold into self-criticism where I'm like, why did you say that? Now they think you're so weird. And yeah, I think that's what masking is for me.
I love that. I always try and teach my boys. I'm always like, because they say that a lot. Oh my God, I'm going to seem so weird. And I go, be weird. My son showed me a brilliant meme as I get down with the kids here. And it was two cartoon characters and one had just walked into the room and they said, hello. And there was another table of characters that was like, that was loud. Who invited you? Who said you could speak? And this person's just stood there in another bubble going, I just said hi. And it was like, that is what it's like, I think, in real life, on social media now. You can't even say something basic without the world being upon you. Jo, can you share a little bit of experience around a time you may have needed to mask?
I think when I'm at family gatherings, I feel like there's a lot of sensory aspects involved, like the food that's being served and all the people that I've maybe not seen in a while, or people that I've not met or don't remember. And it can be loud and also really awkward. And I'm expected to talk to a lot of people and just, I have to mask a lot. And I feel the need to act like I'm not bothered by all the people talking and how I can hear someone's knife scraping from the other side of the table because I have to be focused on the conversation that I'd really rather not be having. And I'd rather just sit alone and eat my chicken and talk to people when I feel comfortable and settled. And it's so much concentration and brain power. So it gets exhausting so fast. And a lot of people probably look forward to gatherings or parties. And I do love my family, but for me, by the end of the night, I'm just so exhausted that I need a day of rest. I think having deep there really helps ease some of the anxiety I feel though, and he can get me out of difficult situations. I can excuse myself using him and it gives me something to talk about as well. I feel less of a need to mask when I'm talking about something I really love, like do.
Josie, I'm just blown away by how you managed to articulate all of that, because I feel like you just summed up both my girls and all those sentences, the scraping cutlery and all the sensory issues around food when it's not being prepared in your own house and other people have done it. It's just, there's a lot there that I'm sure my girls could relate to. Caroline, what about you? Can you remember a time when you've needed to mask a lot, particularly that stood out to you?
Well, I recognise where I've been doing it most of my life. So for me, I totally agree with it being draining. It burns calories, literally. But I thought it was polite. I will assess what I'm doing, where I am and who I am, and what I believe I need to achieve or deliver as. That sounds really fake and insincere, doesn't it? But it's true. I do find it very stressful. Yeah, I'm worried about saying too much because I'll give away my secret. But and then I'm responsible for my role, and I'm a parent, and I care, and I try to motivate and maybe even to inspire. Sounds too egotistical, others. So I'm uber careful. But the most obvious one is around small talk. So I am aware that it's polite when people say hello, how are you? I mean, I wouldn't say hello. You can see me, I'm here, and I can see that people have the need to say something. And I think what you want from me is validation or reassurance or enthusiasm. So what does that look like? And I will deliver that. One of the hardest things I find is when people go on and on about a subject I'm not interested in. I'm in my head thinking, am I not like smiling? That's 5 minutes, so I could be doing something else. At those points I find stressful, being polite to end a phone call. So, that's where you feel you're sort of burning calories. And also presenting as an adult, as an autistic adult, I have a child in me. So my family know a personality that others don't, where I feel confident to be euphoric, ridiculous, irresponsible, needy, childish. So most of my life I felt, well, this is needed. But I'm also been very hurt by people thinking she's drunk. She obviously does drugs. Or that I could be quite unpredictable, that when I run out of steam, woof, something would deliver. So a lot of my strategies would be about, well, don't go or leave the party early. And I was sat at the pub last summer with Andrew in the beer garden. It was beautiful. Some friends came over and this lady was chatting, being polite, chatting a lot. And then some young people came over, children of ours that had been footballing, all enthused, and of course they recognised my husband especially, so they wanted to sort of say hello. And this lady, who's lovely, just wouldn't leave. She went on for about 20 minutes. I was really doing my best. It'd been a long day. And the food came out. And then of course I lost the ability, so my tone came out there. I cannot eat. That's really rude. No, I'm leaving. And I couldn't walk through the beer garden and up the path and through the gate. I just went straight to the fencing and stood by the car facing the window. It's a 55-year-old woman in this entire pub watching, my rather large bum, trying to get up because it was a bit high, this fence. So
Brilliant.
it's true. Yeah, don't keep friends very long. I could have just left the meal and everything. Yeah, and then went out without doubt, was very angry at my husband because I like to displace it being his fault.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that picture is going to stay with me for a while.
I know. I'm laughing because there is so much, especially my eldest boy, honest to goodness. What you just said, Caroline, just rung through to me because he never says bye on a phone. I spend my entire life going, oh, he's gone. I'm just sitting, he never does. He's just like, it's finished.
I've got myself in trouble a couple of times. I was nearly escorted out of a Tesco store once because it just failed me. I ran out of steam and this person trying to serve me. I obviously was trying to make small talk and I couldn't do it. No. And she was, and then she said, why are you being so awful? And it probably came over that way and I was just be quiet and fill the bags type thing. And it got worse. And then staff came over and said, would you like to leave? I said, no, I'd like to pay for my groceries. And probably appeared appalling, but I hadn't at that point. My budget was spent, you see. Yeah. So all these people got round me was the function part. And I was just uber focused on what I was going to do and get out because that's all the energy that I had. So it's not always funny in terms of, I'm sure the football team in the beer garden found it hilarious, but the day in Tesco's was the opposite.
Yeah. I can find it humorous in the way of, I think for me, I would see like my boys reacted in that situation. I would have pushed them to it. I'd have just been shouting over the fence going, I'm boring, am I? I'd have just laughed. But I've learned so far down the line and been around my sons, been around other people that I'm just like, if you turn around to me, Caroline, and was like, Emma, you're really boring me today and walked off, it's like, I wouldn't take offence at it because I'm so used to it.
But I know that would be offensive, so I try very much not to say. I am known for being direct and sometimes when I'm weary, it can be, and sometimes I've no idea that it is rude.
Do you know, it took for my sons, I think, to get to that age where they were like, we can actually tell mum now, because I'm such a personal Christmas elf that it took them till about 2 years ago to go, Mum, we just don't need it. We don't like it. We don't need the roast. We don't need the things. We'd rather be in his pajamas, open his stuff, and you leave us alone. They killed me at the time, but now I'm like, okay, But it took them that long to say, we actually do this for you, Mum. We're here pulling the crackers. We're here with the hats on for you. And I felt awful. But Caroline, have you ever seen the downsides of masking? What are the costs? You just said about the Tesco, and is that reflection?
I think my generation was brought up in a way where, my father was very intelligent, very polite. So I'm from a working class, polite family. So I knew what the rules were around manners, and I was told it was necessary. That's the way you behaved, and kind of adhered to that. But I wasn't judged daily or by phones and cameras. So I got away with it really by being viewed as being a little outrageous. I don't know what the words were around me at that time. I think it had an impact on my energy levels at work and my relationships at work particularly. I've never been good at, I call managing it up, because it eventually fails you see, because of the drain of energy. And then now looking at the new generation, there was part of me that felt, well, it's about compromise. Whether we're neurotypical, neurodiverse, we should try and understand one another's needs and translation of this moment, try and deal with it with kindness, and that's that. But I'm particularly since I've done the job that I've done, I've seen the pain, I've seen the exhaustion and the mental health issues that are around masking. So I have quite a different view of it now. I have strategies where I will talk easily and then I have to silence for 4 hours. But I know that my husband does. He won't talk to me after this. He knows not to speak. There's no point, because I reach the edge and then that's finished. But I look at young people that are being judged, and it makes me very defensive that they're put in that position. I sympathise with the exhaustion. I want to take it away from them, and the frustration around it being misunderstood and how hard you have to try, and then being left with, because my authentic self is not good enough for this moment, this situation, this school environment, this family gathering, this trip to Tesco's or sitting in a beer garden. I wish that were different, and I don't have the answer. So I think I've moved from it's politely necessary into their being very aware of the dangers of it. And it makes me feel like a mother, brings the mother out in me, I think. I want to protect because I know the pain and the draining it can have. And I tell all the autistic community, particularly the younger autistic people that I meet, how beautiful they are, clever they are, and how wonderful they are just the way they are. And our program doesn't try and change anyone. We are who we are. It's just about making things a little easier and more joyful and peaceful. But I'm an unusual character, and I think that probably makes it easier, Josie, does it? Far from perfect. And you see stuff and I know what's going on there. When we get up the next day and we carry on. But Emma, you're right. It is important, the impact on our loved ones round us.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, Josie. You don't want to hurt them, upset or confuse them. But the burst I see of every autistic young person, intelligent young person, navigating through school, and you're probably right, trying to behave in an entirely neurotypical manner. That's really unfair. You just get home and feel exasperated. And of course, mum and dad come in and will say, how's your day, darling? Let me give you a hug, and you're out. Your budget's been spent a long time before. So you'll just go, wow. And I bet that's really common to so many mums and dads and siblings that see this in their children. And it breaks my heart. And then you teachers that say, they're fine. And I think, you're ignorant. That's unfair. So there we are. I've swung left wing to right wing.
No, I think that's really interesting. I see with Elodie in particular, when she's used absolutely everything within her and she's got nothing left. And it's very visible. Well, I suppose it's visible to the people who know her very well, but I've been in a school meeting with her and two very nice members of staff were kind of not bombarding her, but really strongly encouraging her in what they were wanting her to think about. And you could see the point that she checked out was the point. And I said, okay, well, this is maybe done. But I do think asking has such an impact. And you kind of explained it there with the beer garden, Tesco's. It's like almost a boom and bust. You go for it, but that's not sustainable. So whether that, comes out in a shutdown when you're out and about, whether that comes down in a meltdown when you're at home, whether that comes out as, really quite severe mental health difficulties, it's going to come out some way.
For the month before my assistant's dog, George, and me moving towards burnout. And maybe that masking is part of the depletion, the demise that impacted me physically, not just mental health.
Yeah. From everything that I have read, masking in females seems to be something that can really hold back diagnosis, can have quite a long-term implications in terms of coping at school. And I think that definitely by the time Elodie was unable to get to school, she was very, very unwell. I do think back to how I kept trying to push her because I felt that was the right thing to do. And, in reflection, it wasn't the right thing. All I was doing was pushing her to becoming more sick. But I think, and we've touched on it a wee bit, society or societal expectations are really quite big. And so parents feel a pressure to be like, no, you must keep doing stuff. This is the right thing to do. And autistic individuals feel like I must assimilate. I must fit in. And I wonder how we can change that narrative to make sure that the environment that neurotypicals are going into outside the house are ones that they're able to be comfortable in, feel confident in, feel able to be themselves in. How do we start seeing a shift? What's needed to start seeing that shift?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer because it's not as simple as being autistic or being neurotypical. It's the way the world's working and viewing and moving and perceiving and judging and achieving or not. Do you ever feel, Josie, when you're masking, do you ever think to yourself, am I being convincing? Am I delivering in the way that I want these people to see me?
Yeah, there's just, it feels like so much pressure to kind of fit in with things that I end up taking time out of my day just memorizing things to talk about. I don't think anyone should have to do this. This is like torture. I feel like, why do I have to change my interest? Because I feel like nowadays there's so much pressure on teenagers, especially ones on social media, to fit into a box or into a series of boxes. Like, these are the types of people you can be: A, B, C. That's it. So it's like, oh, which way do you dress? This or this? I'm like, well, I don't really know. I dress how I want. They're like, no, you have to be one or two. And I think the way that we're brought up now, especially when you're just sitting at school and, you're just getting along with your day, and then someone talks shit. It's simple, you just reply back is what someone would think. But for me, it's actually so much more. And again, the brain power that goes into it is just so exhausting. When I went to primary school, I went to the same primary school from reception to year 5. Every day I would mask at school so heavily from, the age of 5. When I come home, I would absolutely explode. I would scream at my parents, and they didn't know I had autism. I didn't get diagnosed for years. They thought it was a bad child, and it was really exhausting for me. Every single day I was so drained that I couldn't even speak to the parents that I loved. I had to scream at them because I was like, I think I was frustrated with how my life was and how much effort I was using every day. I was really drained. I started getting mental health issues, so by year 5 I had to be moved out of that school. That's when my aggression stopped. It was so severe, and I felt so bad when I was doing it, but I couldn't not do it. That was the only way I could express how masking actually made me feel. Yeah.
Well, it sent you into meltdown. That's what it was. You were beyond your ability to not just present, but to think. It's like having a big bell ringing in your skull. It's just impossible and very distressing. So it's a manifestation of that. Where do you think the pressure comes from to behave in a certain way? Does it come from young people? Does it come from educators? Does it come from social media?
Hard question to answer. I think it comes from everywhere. I mean, it's like everywhere you turn, it's there. There's a pressure to act normal and to mask. It's, when you're meeting, when I was younger and I was meeting an adult, I wouldn't want to talk to them. I wouldn't want to be respectful. I wouldn't want to be polite. I would just want to say hello. But no, I had to do all the acting and all the masking. And then when I wanted to make friends, it wouldn't just be like, hi, I'm Josie, do you want to be friends? It would have to be, oh, I want to play with you. I love this game. I love talking about this. I love colouring. Well, no, I don't really like that. And then from teachers, there's so much, don't get me started, school, there's so much rules that are just stupid, and obviously teachers demand respect, and there's ways that you should and shouldn't talk to teachers, there's ways you should and shouldn't behave in the classroom, and you have to do all of this while, kind of figuring out who you are as a child. Like, it's just, it piles up. It piles up, and then eventually, it's everywhere, really. And then social media, once you get older, it's still there.
What would happen if you didn't have a social media account to you in terms of your place in school, in the face-to-face situation? Would it make it harder?
I think for me, it would make it harder because at my school, everyone communicates, through social media. We don't just call each other's houses when we want to talk. So I find it easier to, talk to someone over text maybe than in real life if I'm not that friendly with them, because there's no, what do I say? It's not live, you can read the text, you can respond when you want. But also there are a lot of downsides to social media, especially for autistic teenagers, because there's so much just honestly vile people on social media who say horrible things about autism, who will insult you, and also give neurotypical kids the impression that it's okay to treat people different as there's something that's disgusting, or that it's okay to pick on people, or it's okay to say this through a screen. You wouldn't say that to someone's face in real life.
Right.
No. Yeah.
And I think given social media so much power, but not all of it is good power.
I'm completely there with you on the negative side of social media. But I do think online communities, I've certainly seen it with my girls, can be a really amazing space as well. Certainly, so my eldest is a massive gamer, and she's found some incredibly good friends, from Norway who've come over to visit. She's been over to Norway, people who she can not mask with, people who she can be completely herself, and all that, entails for her. And I agree with you with social media. I think for everyone, it can be quite dangerous. It often shows a very unrealistic picture that you can then feel very like your own life is, pale in comparison, which is completely, the highlighted reel of social media. But I think the online communities that you can be part of can open up doors to friendships, and it takes away the need to talk and to see somebody face to face, because you can be on chat, you can be texting, you can be playing a game that you absolutely love, absolutely obsessed with Genshin Impact, the game. And so she can meet people who are absolutely obsessed with Genshin Impact, and therefore that's all they're talking about. I mean, for literally hours, like she could come away and I'd be like, oh, how is that person? Did they have a nice holiday? I don't know. We didn't talk about it. Why would we talk about those things? Genshin Impact. You know, I think that there is so much ability to find yourself through kind of online communities while being very careful as well. But you know what I mean? I think there's positives as well that I've definitely seen, that you can kind of feel yourself in a way that you maybe can't in other social situations. I don't know how you feel about what you feel about that, Josie, Caroline.
I think it can also be really cool to interact with people in a community that's your special interest. So I really like this TV show, and I have made like friends from talking about this show with other people who like it. And I think a big part of my autistic identity is actually my special interests, because obviously they're so just in my mind all the time. So talking about it and expressing your love for it and reading about it and watching things about it and then talking to other people who share that, it makes you feel normal, feel like, oh, I'm not with lots of people like this. I think it can be really powerful to see so many people just enjoying one thing.
I think if you look behind the scenes, like you said, Joe and Charlotte, there's like these brilliant communities of people that have been banded together by a shared love of something. But then it almost seems like the front of that is like fake social media, just normal day-to-day people are masking part of their lives. They're not showing the upset, they're not showing the rough sides, they're showing the great bits at all times. And it almost seems like as the younger generation come in, it's like they just see these good bits and think, oh, that's what I should aspire to. That's all we should have. So none of it else counts.
I think that there is massive downside and worries around social media, but there's far greater benefit, education, access. So I wonder whether the answer lies within education. But maybe we're still educating in the way that the mindset is the same as when I was at school 35, 40 years ago. Now we know more and we understand more. Why aren't we adjusting? This will make you laugh. Why aren't we adjusting to a different type of learning environment? So by the time I was sort of, 16, 17, I was quite hormonal and quite awkward. And I didn't want to talk to anybody above the age of 30, because certainly I ain't got anything in common with them. So it became a little bit rebellious. And I went to an art college and I became punk rocker. And I'd got spiky hair, all different colours. I'd got a load of earrings.
Brilliant.
And then I became a goth. And I went to an art college, very small art college, did a degree foundation. And I was amongst people in Dr. Martens and bin liners and smoked stuff that smelled very odd, very creative, slinging paint and stuff around, turned up when they wanted to. And actually in that environment, I kind of melted away into the kind of the normal thing.
Yeah.
So the pressure was removed. I'm not suggesting everybody should go through that type of experience, but it was a different setting to be educated in. So maybe the education system is still too clinical.
Yeah.
And is restrictive. And that creates frustration. And maybe it should be more compassionate, more fluid, more, not more relaxed. But I definitely feel that if it were that everybody felt, oh, it's okay. It's okay to be autistic in a wheelchair or too tall or a different colour or whatever. And okay, let's have a go at this today. And there was no pressure. You sit at your desk, you look at the whiteboard, you read the book. That can't be healthy for everyone. How does that help people communicate and understand how diverse things are? I think the world is a better place than when I was a child growing up. I think it's interesting and exciting. And everyone could and should live a fulfilled life. But I wonder why we still keep putting one another into these little pigeonholes. Surely the educators, the influencers of young minds and the way they grow into adults could be the ones that say, do you know, this is great. It's great to think differently. It's great to respond differently and everybody relax.
I literally could not agree with what you have just said more, Caroline. It's like you picked the words out of my brain. I think that's often when you go into school, they pay lip service to everyone is different and we embrace everything and we are so welcoming and la. oh, but you must turn up at exactly the same time every day. But you must go into the classes when the bell rings. You must be wearing a uniform. You must complete your homework. And you're just like, no, but you're not understanding then that everyone works differently. Because that's not how everyone works. That doesn't work for everyone.
That's because teachers are under pressure now. It's just like run like businesses. It's all about numbers and money. I remember my primary school was at the bottom of the garden, literally. The playing field was just to jump over the fence and get in there. And the teachers that we dealt with, it was like being with your grandparents. It was so simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
And they stayed forever with their grey hair, and it was quite loving, I think. High school was different. It was bigger, but there were still areas of creativity, I think, that I would immerse easily in and probably decompress before I went back into the clinical maths. I would say maths can be very autistic. The more sort of challenging, rigid sessions or lessons that were about. And yet I find it remarkable that those rules still apply, and yet we've moved on. I can't get my head around some of the sciences and technology now. My brain can't do it. But I see young people that are so impressive academically. How old are you? 13. I want to in your maths class because you'd be all over me. So, why don't we embrace that? Maybe our children are smarter, more sensitive, so let them create some of their own rules and have input. Stop putting them in holes and bashing the education service. Maybe I should go for government, Josie, I don't know. But there we are, at my end of life, grandma age. I don't know what the answer is to a question about what can be done about it. I wish it's just everyone embracing things, stop making such a big issue about it. But, I'm not in that position of influence, really. Mm-hmm. Of course there's going to be neurodiverse and neurotypical people in the same room. There's going to be short people. There's going to be redheads and people with long noses and people with different accents. Of course there are. Isn't it strange? It should be so polarised. I don't know why it's so troublesome. Maybe they won't find the answer in my lifestyle. However, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think it's getting better. People are learning. It's getting more and more educated. So perhaps when Josie has children, there'll have been a shift change where masking is less necessary. And it was so recognised. It's right. Come on, you need a time out. Just get it off your chest. Or go and sit in the dark or whatever it is you need to decompress and adjust. And that's built into the curriculum. Just thought over fire bells and LED lights, and it's not difficult, is it? I wouldn't have thought. But all those things you endure in this environment what Josie, I think, is talking about is when somebody asks you a question, your brain as an autistic person immediately starts to risk assess. Do I understand the question? What's the outcome going to be? Will it be catastrophic? Will they not like me? Will they hurt me? Will I hurt them?
In lockdown, we had the best attainment from Max that we ever had in his life, because he could join the sessions, sat in his pants and a blanket, in pure comfort, and actually enjoy what he was doing with his teachers, with his classmates on Zoom, and he could turn his camera off when he didn't want to be on video, and he was so comfortable. He was one of the few in his class that won an award for attending every lesson during lockdown. You wouldn't have thought he would have won, it wasn't there. But he was so comfortable. The struggle came when we had to go back.
Yeah.
To the rules, back to the regiment, back to the new masking and all that, because everything that it was at the time. And it was like if he could just sit at home in his pants and a blanket and do his work, he was happy as Larry.
But I also think there's a fear of not being loved and wanted and accepted as well. I was kind of oblivious, I think, when I grew up. Not oblivious is too strong, but there is a need to be popular and get likes and have huge sort of groups of friendships and those sorts of things. That's my observation as well. Maybe those sorts of things should be measured differently. But I definitely think, I know it's politically correct, might be walking myself into all sorts of trouble, but I actually think the youth of today is far brighter, better educated. I do. more capable. Isn't that exciting? So exciting. But masking for autism, and of course, you see, as girls, we've got other rules, haven't we? Be ladylike. This is the way you behave. You shouldn't be getting grubby knees and letting snot run down your face. That's what the boys do. And I think that's why we mask sooner rather than later. Sit quietly. That's what girls do. There's a little bit of that still that goes on. And that's why I think it's healthy that people also explore their sense of identity, their, gender and all those sorts of things, and should make choice that comes from within. You're not told to conform to something else. But, of course, there was huge differences only sort of 50, 55 years ago when I was born. And I bet in 50 years' time, it's going to be a more even playing field.
Yeah.
And I hope there's been breakthrough and all that intelligence. Everyone's just sort of sat back and said, right, come on, what are we going to do that's constructive and masking will be less needed. I hope so, because I've seen some very poorly, just from masking, never mind the rest of it.
And I'm going to go back to school again because it's my easiest point of reference, but educators will see things on the surface. So a masking individual, they're fine. They're fine. What do you mean they're not coping? They're absolutely fine. And I think until we can get to a point where professionals are understanding that what they're seeing is not what is actually going on, until we get to a point where individuals feel more comfortable not having to put that mask on. Josie, do you think that there'll come a point where you could see autistic individuals not masking, or do you think it's maybe more that we need to educate, schools and professionals on the fact that what they're seeing isn't actually what is going on? Or is it a bit of both?
I think it's a bit of both. When a kid is, let's say, just starting school, if they're neurotypical or if they're neurodivergent, I think if both their parents have taught them how there's different people in the world and they've been brought up with love and care, I don't think they look at each other and, judge each other. I think that's taught. I think judgment is taught. And if
Interesting.
not taught, I think masking will decrease, or I think masking some aspects of it would disappear. So, maybe the worrying about fitting in would disappear, but the mirroring of things you've seen by other people would not, because autistic people do have different brains and we think differently, we see things differently. So I wouldn't, know how to react if I was happy. I do, but but if I saw you smile, obviously you'd smile, and that's just a learned behaviour. That's not necessarily masking,
Do you think, Josie, that some of masking is our choice? Because I know that I choose to mask sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's private. This is who I am. It's none of your business. There's an element of that where it's just for my family, kind of thing. So some of it I choose to keep back from other people.
Yeah, some of my masking is, I think I changed my humour with people. But I think a lot of people do that because they're like, oh, if I say this, will this group react the way they did? It's kind of feeling them out. And also sometimes I will mask and act like I'm very confident and, oh, I could talk to you, it's no problem, I'm so friendly. But really inside I'm like, talk to me. But now I'm just sitting like, I think, sometimes it is a choice.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's amazing seeing Josie sat here so eloquently talking through something like this. Wait, are you masking, Josie? Can I ask?
Yeah, I should be worn out after this.
With talk honestly, I think you've done a fantastic. Honestly, I really do. If you were thinking about that, you could talk to the people who make that change. Is there any advice you would ask? Anything you would give professionals to say, you should be doing this, you should be doing that?
I think if you've met a person with autism, you've met one person, and autism doesn't mold everyone into one type of person or, a few types. Every person has their own, challenges and things they excel at. And I think the expectation for everyone to act neurotypical often drives autistic people to try and, imitate what they think is normal. But I just wish we had more inclusivity for different personality types and different, quirks that people have. And, someone who doesn't dress how other people dress or, talks and says words that you haven't heard. Under the diagnosis of autism, there's still a unique human and they have so many interests and there's so many cool things about that person. And I think although the label is useful, it's very useful, it shouldn't be misconstrued for a textbook case of autism.
Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
amazing, isn't she?
I know.
No, I think this is entirely the point. Just erudite, intelligent, young person is capable of finding solutions, in a compassionate and, way with such integrity. And my advice would be to listen more to that and don't assume there is one answer for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think it will succeed eventually.
Absolutely. What about if you were both, of Caroline, if I come to you first, what about if you were to give advice to somebody who is masking every day? Is there any advice that you could give to an individual who's masking every day to try and help reduce that risk of burnout?
I think you have to recognize your own energy levels or lack of. So I have strategies. I'm a rigid thinker. I know what I need to do next. So in my case, and I am guessing and assuming it is for most, it's the tiredness levels. So be kind to yourself. Make sure you have lots of rest. Don't be afraid.
Josie, what about you? If you were to give some advice to somebody who's masking quite a lot at the moment, what would your advice be?
I would say that you don't need to water yourself down to make yourself more, palatable for those around you. Uniqueness, it can be a gift, and autism is a disability that can affect so much about your life, but it also shapes who you are now. And I think, it would be a waste to just let that awesome person inside of you be silenced by your fear of not being normal or not fitting in. And don't be afraid to share your needs. And it's okay to have me time. It's okay to share that I don't want to talk to them right now, or it's okay to ask for what you need, because I think you should never apologize for communicating what you need to feel okay. I think that's just basic human rights. And you shouldn't apologize for taking up space. You shouldn't apologize for just existing. Who are you? There's nothing you can do about it. So live the best life you can.
Listen, Josie, I think we all need to take that advice, to be honest. I need to write that down.
I mean, honestly, I think I don't know whether I need that written down as a mantra, as a t-shirt. I mean, don't water yourself down, Josie.
Yeah, that was beautiful. What insight, what integrity. Just, yes, don't water yourself down.
Absolutely.
I need it on everything.
Hopefully, these sorts of discussions, young people like you will help to change the world, Josie. I believe it as well, and we're all here to try and help that happen, I guess. My life's committed to it, Emma, Charlotte, and it's all about you. It's all about, isn't it? It's all about our children. It's all about young people and your world. So I hope people learn from mistakes and they listen to voices like yours.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, very, very wise words. Josie and Caroline, thank you so much for joining and for sharing your invaluable insights on this topic. I do think it's the case, like so many other episodes that Emma and I have now done, where our conclusion is a little bit more education, more education, more education. We need to keep this conversation going, help professionals understand what masking is, the costs of it, and the need for support for autistic individuals. It's simply not enough to not look behind the mask to the person who's inside.
Absolutely. And we, as always, would love to hear from you guys at home. Get onto our Facebook page and Instagram. Tell us what your experiences might have been with masking. Let's use social media to good effect tonight, and the cost that you have found, the difficulties that it may have brought you. Maybe you're a professional and you have found ways to support autistic individuals who are masking. We would love to hear from you. We would love the advice, and it'd be great to hear all of your experiences. Until next time, good night.
Good night.